I'll probably put this one with reader, adventure, and topics. But every once in a while, the Twitters still has some interesting ideas. And from Kit Sunche, Harold and Paul Brev, there's an increasingly common trend I'm seeing in books, games, and movies these days is having characters banter or snark with at each other. In the middle of combat, this is utterly ridiculous. The idea of casual danger dialogue stems from comic books. With only a couple dozen pages per issue, the creators have to cram in as much plot and personality in every panel as possible. This is true. This works because every panel is a slice of frozen time. Every panel represents a beat. Talking is a free action contained within the beat. This is unique to the medium, not seen in other media, and for good reason. Which an example of that media on screen, the Guardians of the Galaxy movie did have a lot of snarky comments while the combat was going on and everything. Just as an example. He continues, here's an example. This banter only works because every panel is frozen in time. The action and dialogue take on a timeless quality. Every panel isolated from each other. It's how you can stuff lots of text in a single page and still retain coherence. Every panel in a comic book is a slice of time. This property does not exist in any other medium. Taking, bantering, and other casual danger dialogue and transferring it to other media doesn't work. That's because actions take place in real time as a part of a sequence of events. Just to go slightly off topic there, that does definitely make sense especially if you're going for a more realistic side of superhero prose. But if you also have people that can do magic and or speedster that can kind of slow down time, I can see where the plus and minuses to that can come into play. Usually, even with Uplift Protocol, when I look back at the other stuff I've done for it up till now, I usually have the heroes concentrate on, countering the villains. They don't talk much, except for in the small moments between, fisticuffs, where it's like, okay, go over there, do this. I try to make the dialogue very short and to the point when it comes to anything involving combat. Because even when I was in the Navy, with the live fire exercise and stuff, which really the live fire exercise for us in the Navy was shooting at the paper target, but we didn't have time to really talk with anyone. They wanted to drill it into us like this is how you do it. This is how you're supposed to fire off your weapon system. Get it onto the target. Go for center mass. Don't try to be fancy and shoot for the head. Some people could probably shoot for the head if they wanted to, but they try to instill the basics into you so it becomes habit, where you don't even think about it. But I can also see why some military sci-fi does have the bantering that's happening even during the firefight. It's a wheelhouse kind of aesthetic where you're either really into that or you're not, or you're somewhere in between. It just depends. He continues. Um, there's no time for snarking. Time will not stop in the middle of a fight for the main character to insult the villain. Unlike a comic panel where every action and line is a single beat, in other media, every action and every line is a separate beat. Outside of comic books, having dialogue in a fight slows it down. It distracts from the raw physicality of the scene. Significant dialogue should take place in natural pauses within the fight, between blows, while the characters are maneuvering during a release of tension. In this scene from IP Man, notice the dialogue takes place before and after the exchanges, not during them. The interruption in between fights occurred during a natural pause when both fighters were preparing to square off. Actually, IP Man is a good example of a flat arc character as well. If you want to take a look at that movie, I highly recommend it. Action and dialogue within a story must obey the rules of timing. In a comic book, an action and line of dialogue exist in the same beat, the same slice of frozen time in a panel. Outside comics, every action and every line is a separate beat, because he's reiterating it. Banter during an action is a distraction from the action. The audience wants to see action play out to the end. Not only that, bantering gives the other side time and opportunity to act. If you're snarking, you're not acting. If you're not acting, he is. Which is the reason why I had Toth open up, in the last issue. Well, you'll find out the other things were afoot, but that's why I have him open up with a taunt right before the action happens, where Sir Avalon and Judgment are coming in on either side of him to capture him, and while Star's running up the middle, and then she gets hit with magic that causes kind of an illusionary kind of segment, you know, but I didn't actually put dialogue when they were going to physically, apprehend him. Um, and I've noticed this, throughout Uplift Protocol. Again, I usually put the action as a couple of lines, and then everything else continues after, basically. Okay, to continue on. In combat, you must be focused on defeating the enemy. If you spend time and energy thinking of witty lines, you're not focusing on the enemy. You're not focused on the enemy. You will die. Military and police units recognize this. When it's go time, they are all business. They are also so focused on the job, even the thought of snarking won't enter their minds. They can't afford to be distracted. He who is distracted will die. Mid-combat banter is a sign of utter immaturity, of someone who does not take the situation seriously. Such a person will die, and that will turn into compromise everyone around them. Banterers are among the first to be booted from a unit or else ostracized. There's room for humor before the job. The team gears up, the team joker cracks a joke, everyone smiles grimly and continues the job. The idea here is to fall safely blow off tension while focusing on the mission, but this is limited. They still have a job to do. Everyone is alert, but if they're too tense, they will fall apart. The joking and bantering takes place before the job to help ease the tension, but not to relax so completely that you lose the edge. Banter here regulates emotion so that everyone can stay focused. You can have banter after the job too, when everyone is back at the base, when they are stood down and can relax. Then they can banter and snark all they want. The mission is over, the tension is over, they can joke and horse around to relax. Humor is a pressure release valve. It blows off excess tension while keeping everyone in the game. Humor is also meant to test everyone, especially newbies, to see how they perform while mildly stressed and weed out the uptight. It's a story. In story, humor must serve a purpose. What about the mid-combat humor? Not going to happen. Again, if you are distracted, you're thinking of anything other than defeating the enemy, you will die unless something out of the ordinary happens. Something shakes it up and everyone who sees it. A white donkey wandering into the middle of a firefight. A breaching charge that blows down the door and nearby operators. Events so surreal you can't help but laugh. Even so, no snarking, no bantering. Get back to the job the second you recover your senses. If not, you will die. Yeah, yeah, that's more of a realistic, like, especially if you're gonna get engage military sci-fi kind of people, or former military operators in general. Galaxy's Edge does a fair amount of this, where they'll have the quips before and after the battle, but not really during the battle. They'll more showcase what the characters are thinking during the battle to see how they can like maneuver around each other, that sort of thing. But to continue on with this last part, outside comic books, mid-combat banter and snarking is annoying. It's distracting, it's unprofessional, it's a violation of the rules of timing, and in the real world, it gets people killed. Avoid unnecessary banter and snarking. Emphasize the drama and physicality of the moment. Leave humor for when it's appropriate. Respect the timing of action and dialogue. This is how you craft a superior story. The end. And he was basically doing this to highlight his own Heroes Unleashed book, Hallowed City. Which again, that's the reason why I kind of compared it to like a police procedural like Blue Bloods meets superheroes, because even with that show, you could see where there's the drama that does happen, but they realistically react to situations they throw the police officers in. Even though they're actors, but they react to it in such a way that it's like that they've done their research. They'll do banter and dialogue before and after the situation, but during the actual action where they're against the suspect, it's all business. Now, superheroes do have again, depending on their powers, they might have the ability to do those quiet kind of slices of time moments. But overall, I kind of that's the reason why Uplift Protocol isn't purely a superhero setting. It's also a space opera setting, and it has a bit of magic and everything else added to it, because it just has a whole lot of stuff I enjoy into it. So the biggest reason why I wanted to highlight this thread is because there's different, depending on the wheelhouse, the different expectations that happen. Readers have all sorts of expectations when you say mention cyberpunk or anything else. Whatever their personal preferences are for that particular genre or setting will come to the forefront. So if you don't use your blurb and everything else to indicate what kind of slice into this wheelhouse this is, that's where you will get the 1 and 2 star reviews because their expectations weren't met for whatever parameters you put on your book. And I also wanted to keep this thread all together and, for reference if people want to look at it later. Because I just found it interesting. Have a good day, everybody.